Hi, we've got Dr. Lewis Akenji, who's the Managing Director of the Hot or Cool Institute, and that's a public interest think tank that explores the intersection between society and sustainability. Lewis also sits on the Earth for All Transformational Economics Commission, and that's a group of leading economists and thinkers committed to a transformation for well-being. Lewis, you've been given the question, what will we have to give up in order to achieve this transformation? And how will it look across the world? What will we gain?
All right, thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here. I've been listening to Sandrine and David, and I must say, instead of asking the question, what we have to give up, I would ask the question, what do we have to do to get our lives better than we see today? Why? Because what the Earth for All project has done, it's on the 50th anniversary of the Limits to Growth report, is really gone back to the root of the question. Why is it that we're consuming above our capacity or above the capacity of the Earth to sustain our ways of living? And in exploring that, it's exposed quite a number of things, and it suggested quite a number of solutions. It chimes very easily with what the IPCC recent report has just said, that through changes in consumption and lifestyles, we can reduce between 40 and 70% of greenhouse gas emissions before 2050. Now, that's a huge amount of potential just sitting in changing the way we live towards better and well-being for everybody. At a Hot or Cool Institute, those of you who have been following would know that we released the 1.5 degree lifestyles, looking at the connection between changes in lifestyles and the contributions that this can make towards a 1.5 degree aspirational target of the Paris Agreement. What we find is that our current lifestyle carbon footprints are at about 4.6 tons per person per year. And in order to meet this Paris Agreement target or reap the benefits of the 70% reductions in footprint emissions, which the IPCC talks about, we need to drop to about 0.7 tons per person per year. Now, that is radical. This is the reason why the Earth for All project is not just talking about transformation, it's talking about turnarounds. But once you start looking into the details of this, this is really where the problem is. And what is becoming very clear is that if we do not address the social tensions that we're finding in our society nowadays, we might even have social collapse before we have climate collapse. Now, what do we see in there? We're seeing a lot of eco-anxiety. We're seeing a lot of inequality between genders, between southern and northern countries, between the rich and the poor, across generations. A very typical example of this is we're just going through a pandemic. And in fact, at the peak of this pandemic, while 40 million Americans, for example, were filing for bankruptcy, the billionaires saw their wealth grow by about $500 billion. Now, that's the perversion we have in our society nowadays, right? This is one of the reasons why one of the suggestions which the Earth for All project is coming out with is that we should consider the possibility of capping wealth in society, where 10% of the richest in a country are not allowed to own more than 40% of national income. These are some of the things we'll be needing to look at. But it's not just an issue of people changing their lifestyles. It is how governments, businesses, and so on join forces to make it easier for sustainable ways of living to become default. In this, there are two main things I'd like to talk about. The first one is an approach which is very old to most people. Government traditionally uses what is called choice editing to make sure that we have public safety, public health, security, and so on. The point here is the government uses a certain criteria to allow certain things in society and to edit out certain things. So think of guns, for example. It's very difficult, at least for those of us in Europe, to walk into a shop and buy a gun. This is because governments have decided in the interest of public safety, they've edited that out. But in a climate emergency, shouldn't we be using sustainability as a criteria for editing in and out the options that we have in society? So what are some of these? It is very obvious. What do we edit out? Those high impact areas in society, especially those that have private benefit and public burden, such as use of fossil fuels, second homes, and loyalty programs for five-star hotels, and frequent flyers. All of these would need to be edited out. What needs to be edited in? Opportunities for regenerative agriculture, for plant-based diets, and other ways of living that are more in keeping with the targets that we've agreed upon. But it's not just about editing or taking away things. It's also about finding social innovation, spurring the spirit in society amongst businesses to find new ways of meeting our needs that are different from what we've traditionally seen. In this regard, the Earth for All project is also going to come up with something called the Wellbeing Index, building on the work of the Wellbeing Economy Alliance. What it recognizes, and which I think every economist or even non-economist would tell you, is that what we now call the GDP is a brutal, extractive, and colonial measure of what it means to be a developed country or a developed economy. And we need to move away from this towards 21st century measures for actually how to live in society. David has mentioned well-being. What this index will do, what the well-being index will do is look at 5 areas where research has shown very clearly that we need to start measuring if we want to see people's lives get better in a sustainable world. The first one is living a life of dignity. So people have enough to pay to live in comfort and safety. The second one is an abundance or restored nature. This is why climate change is such a major issue. It's not just the mathematics of it. It is that the more the climate changes, the more discomfort we will face in society. The third one is a sense of connection, a sense of belonging and building of institutions that allow people to participate in society. The fourth is fairness. We're seeing extremes of poverty and wealth in society, and we need to start curbing those and getting people on a more equitable basis. And the last but not the least is a sense of meaningful participation in society, of connecting to local communities and economies. If we do not do this, I'm afraid sometimes we'll tunnel dig into focusing just on climate change and getting a very broken society in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Lewis. That was absolutely super. Thank you very much indeed, and very, very insightful. Cheers.